So yeah, did you want to start just by introducing yourself? I mean, I know you've been on a few webinars with us before, and you're one of my favourite people for just engaging and just changing my mind as well on a lot of things, on how I approach things. So I'm looking forward to today. But yeah, do you want to just give us a quick? 'Cause I think you might get a little bit. We were just talking before we started. You might get a little bit misprofiled as just a job board. So maybe give us that as well. So yeah, I'll let you talk.
Yeah. No, well, thank you for having me, Adrian. It's very nice to be back, and hello everybody at home, or back at work, wherever you are now. So I'm Shani Hamilton, founder and CEO of the FindYourFlex group. So in our network, we are findyourflex.co.uk, mummyjobs.co.uk, and daddyjobs.co.uk. It's all about content, marketing, changing the landscape, and really informing on the future of work. So yes, we have a flexible working job board, and we've got some amazing employment partners that we do loads of work with, not just posting jobs. We do a lot of video content, LinkedIn lives. We've got a podcast series coming out. We work with them to add really a lot of employer value, talking about them and their culture, behaviours, the values that they have, because it's becoming more and more important to candidates out there. And obviously we have 1.3 million candidates that utilise our network somewhere, whether it's on social media or the job board or on the community sites, every single month. And they're always new, they're always I think we're 95% new and unique as an audience every single month. So because of how we promote the content that we have across the platform, we're always writing blogs, and we did one very recently about the Great Resignation, which is, I know, how we ended up talking about it, Adrian. So yeah, like I said, we're not just a job platform. We do an awful lot in terms of trying to move the goalposts of people and just making work more accessible, lobbying government, writing stories, well, not stories, writing truths, I guess. But yeah, we like I said, we've got a very active and engaged network, which we've done some polls over the last 24 hours, which are adding, fantastic insight to stuff that we can share with our employers and our broader network in HR.
Excellent. Okay, and I know we're going to talk about some of those polls, but I'm going to start with a nice. Well, I'll give you a bit of personal. I love being totally honest here at Hireful. So we're about just over 50 staff, and in the last 3-4 months, we've had probably 6 resignations. It's quite a lot. We're also, as a recruitment company, we're quite geared up to recruit. We're actually really pleased that we're hiring good people. Almost all of those resignations have been really positive resignations, where people have been with us several years and they're just maybe looking for that new challenge. So I think a lot of our resignations have been where people maybe have had time to reflect over this sort of lockdown period and things like that, and coming back into the office now, I've gone, do you know what, it probably does feel like it's time for a bit of a change and maybe a new challenge and a new chapter in my life. And that's clearly one aspect of the Great Resignation tsunami, as we're labeling it, as someone else cleverer than me worked out in marketing probably. But yeah, what do you think is causing this? Because it's more than one thing, isn't it, really?
It is more than one thing. I think, COVID has done one thing over the last 2 years, and that is forced people to change, to look at themselves, to reevaluate. And I think where we're seeing a lot of resignations is that employers haven't done the same. They're not engaged with their employees to sort of see what is driving them, because I think a lot of our drivers have changed over last year. The amount of people I'm talking to now that are talking about work-life balance, that don't want to just go back to the 9-to-5 sat at a desk, being fairly unproductive. People have liked the flexibility that's been on offer the last sort of few years, and I think, well, for those that have been fortunate enough to work, I mean, obviously there's been a lot of people on furlough that haven't been able to work, that probably wish their employers did do flexible working, in which case they could have continued working. So I think that's a big one. I think a lot of companies just jumped on the hybrid working tour bus when that came around, and again, one size fits all solutions, they never work. It won't work for everybody, and it's about, from a flexible working perspective, is having a flexible working policy that actually reflects the wants and needs of the people, making sure that it still works for you as an employer. But it's about having grown-up conversations. All of this is about having grown-up conversations. I mean, we've had massive growth. We've gone from 2 of us sort of a year ago to up to, I think there's 11 or 12 of us now, and we've just lost our 2 apprentices that we just hired, we've lost them. They've had other opportunities elsewhere, one to do a level 4 instead of a level 3, and another within an industry that she obviously just wanted to work in. And again, like yourself, had really positive feedback for their time with us, but obviously they just had a greater opportunity elsewhere. And I think there's kind of that. I think people are also looking at themselves in terms of, well, what is my value, you know, and if employers aren't putting together, you know, packages that suit people either at hire or in job descriptions, or for people who've been there and not had a pay rise in a while, or not had promotion opportunities, you know, there's those drivers that we need to think about. Yeah, I think that there's a lot going on at the minute, and it's almost just like a perfect storm when we've got, you know, because automation has obviously had a massive impact on the recruitment space in terms of a lot of people falling out of retail and maybe not being given the tools to understand how they can rescale or transfer those skills into other industries. We've got the healthcare sector just about to be massively hit by the no jab, no job policy that comes into play on the 13th of September. I know of one company alone that's going to lose about 3,500 people come the 13th of September because they don't want to get jabbed. Yeah, forcing people back to the office that maybe don't want to return or are not quite ready, because I think that's the other side of it. There's the emotional and there's the anxiety side of not wanting to return. I've spoken to people who've literally been in tears at the thought of having to return to the office the next day. And yeah, like I said, a lot, you know, whether it's values, whether it's, you know, culture, there's a lot going on.
So any one of those issues, I think, would be quite a big thing. You know, would have quite a big effect, probably get a decent bit of media attention. But those combination of things, I mean, great, we can see some questions coming through or some comments as well. I'll have a chance to read them in a second, guys. So yeah, like, fire your questions through. We are going to jump straight into them. So yeah, there's a lot going on here. Now, a lot of what we do here at Hireful, you know, we get quite practical with the training and the tips. And I suspect what we'll see is we'll see more people actually taking action after joining up to these webinars, because I think that undoubtedly with any training, lots of people go out, get information, listen, and not all of it is put into practice. But I think there's almost like a hand in employers' back now, pushing them a little bit faster to do more. But what are your thoughts around what employers can do to sort of either insulate themselves from resignations or make themselves more attractive to, you know, the resignations are going to happen perhaps in some cases. So what can they do to make themselves more attractive in this new market as we see candidates with different aspirations?
I mean, for me, it always comes back to culture, values, behaviours. Start talking to your staff, start talking to your board, start talking to your managers. What kind of workplace are we? Who do we want to be? What are we aspiring to be? Talk to your staff about, you know, what works for them now. Has life changed for them? Because, you know, they may have lost people over the last 2 years that were in their stuff. You know, the amount of sort of grandparents and parents that people have lost, you know, for people who've got childcare, they may have really sort of needed those people in their lives to sort of help them out. And obviously childcare costs are going through the roof. So it's about having grown-up conversations with your current people and understand who they are now and what we as a business can do to change. What can we accommodate? Do we need to go back and look at our organizational structure and start things? So that's kind of big picture, I guess. I think closer to the bonus, there are some quicker wins in terms of opening up and talking about flexible working. I think work-life balance is probably one of the biggest drivers out there at the minute for people switching, and using that as a benchmark for business cultures, values and behaviours. That's something that we're seeing time and again. I mean, we started off with mummy and daddy jobs. They were our first 2 brands, yet actually 68% of our audience don't have any childcare requirements, or they either don't have children or their youngest child is 17 plus. So that younger audience, 18 to 24, has massively grown for us, and the 45 plus audience has been absolutely growing like you wouldn't believe over the sort of the last 18 months. So again, you're talking about, you know, people and HR leaders whose mindset are just, oh, well, flexible working is only for parents, they're the only ones who really need that flexibility, when actually that really isn't the case anymore. And like I say, a lot of people's values have changed you know, over the last 18 to 24 months, and businesses need to understand how they can accommodate that to attract all of this talent that is available. I mean, I posted this morning on LinkedIn, you know, we've just been given a, you know, smashed yet another monthly record of users on the platform from Google Analytics, and the people are out there, people are looking for work. You know, it's just that, you know, employers aren't marketing themselves effectively enough, and that comes down to, you know, doing something simple as showing the salary or a salary banding. You know, we spoke about this earlier, Adrian. You know, we did a huge survey literally just yesterday, and as of 9 o'clock this morning, it had 2,500 votes on it in the UK and over 70,000 views of the poll. And 84% of people said that if a salary isn't in a job description, it would put them off applying. And I would say the same goes for, you know, if it's not really clear what flexible working and what types of flexible working is available isn't clear in the job description, again, you're going to put people off applying. So depends on whether you want to do employee engagement or employee retention. There are big conversations that need to be had.
Yeah, and you're not going to be able to do it all at once. So you've got to work out what your priorities are. It does feel to me like, you know, advert copy, how you present yourself. If you have got, you know, part of the website, or maybe if you're lucky to have a career site, you need to get that messaging all out there. Yeah, but there's definitely there is, as we said, like there's candidates out there. It's actually if you're in recruitment, if you're a recruitment company, which we are and you are, it's actually a good time. There's lots of customers needing staff, and there's actually, bizarrely, there's lots of staff out there, more than normal. Normally it's sort of one or the other. So there'll be winners. I think that's the interesting point. There'll be winners and losers, isn't there? Because there's people that are good up, and there's people that are probably not going to change. Some people have already got this journey already, so they've got the advantages they're ready to take.
Yeah, and it's not people that are unemployed either. I mean, because we do a D&I poll on all of our audience every single month, and 7 in 10 at the last count are currently in employment and are unhappy and are wanting to move. So that is a big, bold statement from employees that they are going, you know, this resignation tsunami is real. And just because you may not have had, you know, the notices in yet, people are looking, and a lot of people are looking.
On the flip side of that, just because you've not had like talented people apply to your roles, they are there, they're just choosing not to apply. Let's get to some questions. Let's get to some questions that we've had come through, so that I can see lots of good questions coming. Well, I see lots of questions, I haven't read them yet, I'm sure they're good. Sorry, okay, so I'll go in order that have come through. So Clive has said, it'd be interesting to see what businesses are doing to address people now working from home. We spent years stopping the silo working. Now many teams are no longer coming into the office. There's a real challenge to stop individuals going back to that. So also has an impact on development and training. So it does seem like Clive's making the point, which, you know, I'm actually very much in agreement with, in that the office is really important around collaboration, and there is most of the stuff written, most of the comments on LinkedIn, most of the posts on LinkedIn are about give us flexible working. Flexible working is really good. Work from home is really good. And you know, I can see that, but I'm also, I don't think organizations should be really jumping in to that unless they've given it some good thought. Like you say, you've had conversations with your staff, you've thought about it, you've looked at what the needs are for each team, because it's not necessarily company wide.
Yeah, and that comes down to two things. Like I said, talking to people, because working from home won't be right for everybody. Some people will want to be in the office. I think it's important for certain age groups to also have office time as well, because when you're young, that's where we do our socialization, it's where we meet our friends, our partners, it's where we learn. The older generation, we need them as mentors. They need to be making sure that the newer kids coming through have got the skills to traverse their own career ladder. And you know, it comes down to technology as well. I mean, we were set up as a remote team back in 2017, so we've been remote now for 4.5 years. And I'm still learning how to manage and look after my teams. And you know, technology is really important to us. We're all on Slack, we're all on HubSpot, we're all on email all the time. So we've got that camaraderie, and our culture and values, it works for us, it suits everybody who works in my organization. That's about knowing which type of people that we need to attract to the role, because we've tried lots of different things over the years, and some people have worked out, some people haven't. Some people just physically can't work from home. My other half cannot work from home. He just doesn't have the ability to focus. So it's very much about your own.
I think that women are better at being disciplined at working from home than men.
I don't think it's just women. It's
in my very small market research group. I don't want to go offending anyone, but it does seem like a few of my mates have discussed it. It's like, yeah, no, we're not so good at it.
Yeah, I think, like I say, it's about, for a lot of employers, about having these grown-up conversations, because it won't work. I mean, every now and again, I miss an office, you miss the crack of it, but again, depending on how your technology is set up and the kind of stuff that you can pull in, it is doable. The other downside that I think is that I don't think business support has caught up with remote teams. We just released an article this week that one of our new starters got scammed. Some people had got in touch with them and completely scammed them out of £800 of Google Play vouchers, thinking that I needed them to buy them as an incentive for our clients, and that wouldn't have been possible, I don't think, if we had been in the office. But the fact that we can't really support her afterwards because business insurance isn't geared to cover remote businesses or small businesses in that way, because you weren't hacked, they just changed the display name. And I think, you know, big businesses weren't supporting her. So in terms of Tesco, Google, like the companies that were involved in, you know, why she lost that amount of money, you know, don't help. So I think there's still a lot of support that businesses need to find to help them get into that remote working mindset and support businesses and teams to be able to work in that way as well. And like I said, that's the first time it's happened with us. So the more businesses that are going remote, the more of these scammers are going to start targeting new starters and things like that, and playing on that side of it too. So there's a lot for businesses to think about, really.
Yeah, you might have to adapt your induction at the very least.
Yeah, that's what we've done.
I'm going to try and keep this not in chronological in order as I can see things coming through. So I will get to all the questions, guys. I'll do my best. So Julie's asked, we're trying to be flexible with our recruitment to enable people to work from home. However, many of the job boards don't have an option to record the location as home-based. What do you recommend to get around this? I guess from a technical point of view, even if you've got the option to sort of log it as home-based, it's like, how easy is it for the candidate to say, show me, you know, roles that I can work from home? And I guess the other fact you've got to factor in then is, if you said, show me roles that have the ability to work from home, you might be competing with a lot more jobs then, because normally you compete against that specific skill in that specific town. And if you go for that specific skill against 20% of all of the jobs, which in that sector, let's say tech or something, which might be work from home, that's a lot of competition. So there's a technical,
it's a lot of talent. There's a lot more talent.
Sorry,
there's a lot more talent. There's a lot more talent available too when you do that. So on our platform,
you've also got to get seen, haven't you? You've also got to get. So there's a technical challenge around your advert. Yes, there's more people there, but you've got to make sure in that case. So on that scenario, that would say to me, there's the level of detail you might want to go into if you're competing against thousands of jobs, because you can be searched against work from home. You've got to get an advert that's very well optimized. Whereas normally you wouldn't have to worry about that level of optimization.
I think that's true on normal job boards. On our job board, because obviously it is all about flexible working, the first thing that candidates see when they drop on jobs.findyourflex.co.uk is searching by how they want to work flexibly. So we give them full-time flex, part-time flex, work from home, hybrid, flexi time, school hours, whatever that it might be. That is their first refining. So they would only get served those jobs that are 100% work from home. So I think, again, it depends on the platform and the searchability that they have for candidates. But yeah, I mean, for your bog standard, your Indeeds and your Reads and your things like that, it's about job optimization and making sure your job descriptions right. But yeah, for if you're using a proper flexible working job board channel, then it's really easy for candidates to find the jobs that are out there that they want to work by. But and like Adrian said, yes, it's about, you are up against a lot of other brands that are offering work from home, but it's not as many as you think, or they're not marketing themselves in that way. But you do also have access to talent that might not just be UK wide, it might be more global talent as well. You know, as we move towards sort of freelance and output based working versus traditional PAY job types as well, this is all evolving over the next 5 to 10 years. Be really interesting to see where it goes.
So a couple of things occur to me. One is I've got a webinar and a guide around advert copy, which I will make sure we share. We'll put it onto the email we send out with this recording. So because a lot of stuff we're talking about advert copy at the moment. I guess the other thing, the mainstream job boards, they seem quite slow to adapt to. You must be just scratching your head going, how are they not offering the same options we're offering? Because you just charted off 5 options there, which seem quite simple just to put into a drop down where people can select, okay, well, are you flexible? If so, what sort of flexible?
Yeah, I think it's not just that. I just think that there's still a shed load of MLMs on your big national job boards as well. That's something that we will not allow on our site. We've gone up against the MLMs. They're just multi-level marketing companies. So like your Betterwares, your Ravons, your Uniques, there's Candles ones, that they're all sorts of, they're rife over social media. We won't have them on the job platform. And that really cuts through the chuff, because I think when you get it on a national job board, you're fighting through all of those, because they're all what serves back as work from home, generally speaking. So on ours, because that's not there, it allows you to actually find proper PAYE roles that are work from home.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. Okay, so let's go through some others. Jane, if you can let me know what industry you're in. I think you've asked an interesting question. I'd just be keen to understand what industry you're in, so why it's struggling to offer work from home. I know some industries clearly, if you're in airport security, you can't do that job from home. Maria's said, she's community pharmacy. Yeah, okay, so I can imagine that's quite difficult. So
it's not just about work from home though, Adrian. Flexible working is a lot of different things. What work from home is only one type of flexible working. And you are going to get people who, because of safety, because they don't want to catch COVID, will, in that place where they just want to be from home, but they're not your candidates anyway. They're not people you're going to attract in industries like hospitality or retail, where there needs to be a physical presence. So I think it's just about understanding who it is that you're trying to reach and what kinds of flexibility can you offer, because no, you can't offer work from home, but actually you might be able to offer school hours, you might be able to offer flexibility around start and finish times, you might be able to do term time only. You need to look at who your customers are and how they need to be serviced, and then reflect that with your flexible working policies.
Yeah, and like you said as well, reflecting back into your current employees. So not pitching anything, we offer a free employee engagement survey tool, but I would say as an organization, you're pretty daft if you're not surveying your staff anonymously to find out what they think. The only scenario where you shouldn't be doing that is if you are in no shape whatsoever to take action on the feedback that comes back. So really ask, find out, and get that feedback, and then obviously have the one-to-ones, have the group meetings as well, because I presume that's part of what you're suggesting as well, Cheney.
And learn to compromise, and learn to just have grown-up conversations with people. People know that their employees are not going to be able to accommodate everything. Half the battle is just being listened to, and feeling like they've been heard, and that you're trying to do something at least. Whether or not you can go the whole hog, amazing if you can, but people will meet you halfway.
Yeah, okay. Right, so Pretty's asked, when businesses are looking to regain the profit they missed due to lockdown and COVID, the pressure on performing is huge on all staffs. How do companies ensure employees' well-being, work-life balance, along with meeting profits? I'm going to quickly say, we had a strategy day yesterday with our strategy advisor, and he said, like, during COVID, everybody went into survival mode pretty much. Now everyone's coming out of this, and this is why I think you're also seeing a job growth as well, because people are putting in play, investment projects, things are actually going. So what I would say, Pretty, is if you're still thinking a little bit short term, a little bit, how do we make money in the next 3 months? A large part of the economy, I think, has gone back to looking at where do we want to be in 2-3 years' time, which is a more normal question. So you might find, if you need to ensure the money is coming in, then you need to do what you need to do, but you will be at a disadvantage, I guess.
Yeah, for me, it's about how do you make your work staff productive, and again, ask them, how do you work that's most productive, and if you're unsure whether or not they are productive and you haven't quite figured that out, put KPIs in place that are really, really clear for people to allow them to work as they say they're most productive. And then if they're not, you can deal with that through one-to-ones, through training. And if they are fantastic, you've got a really productive member of the team. My guys, we are not really restricted on time in terms of, we are very much output based, and I think those kind of contracts work really, really well for growing organizations, for organizations that are really trying to get up to that next level. It's just trust your staff, give them, they've got to understand you, they've got to have the same culture, values and behaviors, and they can really just be as productive as they can be if you're willing to listen to them, accommodate them, and give them really clear indicators of what you need as a business, why it's imperative that they do it, and get them bought in and passionate about who you are as a business. And I know not every job comes with changing the world, but people. Yeah, a mission, but businesses, there's still companies out there that I would be proud to work for, regardless of, but it might be because of the behaviours or how they treat their staff versus what the mission of that business is. So I think it's just making sure that you've got all of your taps turned on, and that you really are just talking to your staff, talking to your board, understand what the business needs are, and marrying them up with what your drivers are for your staff. And if you haven't got the right staff, then it might be time to, as Adrian said, look at your job descriptions, look at your values, what do you need within the business, and how do you rehire? Because that always comes with organizational change anyway. There's always going to be people who are just not on board with the way you're going, and there's going to be people out there who would absolutely thrive in that environment. So it's just understanding that there is always that ebb and flow, and figuring out how to get there, but it always starts with conversation.
Yeah, and I think pretty as well, the last thing I say is, it sounds like your business has been through, a difficult period, as many of them have. And I'd imagine many of your staff have probably been, obviously individually have all had different experiences. They've probably been through some different, difficult periods as well. So I just think during the very worst of COVID and stuff, like the initial 3 months where there was a lot of uncertainty, I think there was probably a lot of businesses like ours saying, okay, well, we've just got to do this, guys. Can you help us, and can we get through? And there was almost like a Dunkirk spirit, and certainly in our company and in other companies as well, I'm sure, of getting through that. I think now we've got through it, you've sort of, for the most part, you've got to then reward people, not just financially, but you've got to reward people for, for being with you on that journey, and for having your back. And you can't keep pushing and pushing and pushing. It's got to be, that was a short-term thing, and now you need everything to go back to normal and look after staff as much as best you can. Okay, Lynn's asked, we recruit 16 to 18-year-olds as apprentices. We've never found it hard to get good candidates, but have struggled this year. Why are there less candidates for good opportunities with full training provided? I don't know if that's something you've seen, Cheney. I know you recruit.
We've lost 2. We've hired 3 and lost 2. And that's because, people, I think, there are really great candidates out there. We've interviewed a lot of great apprentices. It's the package. We've been left because we're not quite where we need to be in terms of what we can offer as a financial package. Although the training has been, they've all said they've loved the training, we've not been able to compete financially. Or they've been offered a higher apprenticeship. So we took somebody on a level 3, they've left to do a level 4. Right. So again, it's you're kind of if you're using an apprenticeship company, you're trusting them to let you know kind of where that candidate needs to be. But again, learning from our own mistakes is making sure that they, is the candidate really happy doing a level 3? Do they need to be on a level 4? How do we get them there prior to them starting? If that's kind of where they want to be. And again, it's just, we market in very different ways. We're, like I say, we're not a traditional job board, although we do traditional listings because that's what people sometimes like to see. We do a lot of additional content. People feel like they know us, they've followed us for a long time. And I think it's about how employers really present themselves to the world and to the candidates you're trying to attract, and show them that actually this is a place where they want to be. I think that's never been more important, as all of our cultures and values have changed over the last sort of 18 to 24 months. And I think you just got to put yourself in their shoes. They've had no schooling, they've not done exams, they've not had any sort of traditional closure on their school life. So this is like their first entry into the world of work, and we've got to really make it inviting and show them who we are as employers and how we'll add value to their lives, in addition to a salary at the end of each month. It's really never been more important than right now.
So it's that whole storytelling picture, understanding what you're. I'd also guess, I still think most of the time when I go out and look at advert copy, most of the time it's really poor. When I go out and look at so we're working in that sort of SMB area where there's maybe organisations with a few hundred staff, would be fairly typical. You go out and check out their websites and how they present themselves. To be honest, it's pretty poor. So, you know, one thing I would definitely say, Lynn, is check out your competition. If it's local competition, see who's out there, see what they're advertising, see how they present themselves, you know, because I always have the view that, particularly you've had it previous years, there's good candidates out there. So what's changed? You know, is it something about your industry? Is it something about how you present yourselves? But you should probably always be challenging yourself to do more and present yourself better. There's normally, most organisations, when I used to run workshops face to face, and we will do them again probably next year, you go speak to people, go around the room, and then you talk to them and you find out they've got some fantastic stories. And the night before I checked out their websites and it just doesn't come through. There. Doesn't come through. So that'd be my guess. I don't know, but that'd be my guess. Would be, is the story coming through? So like if there's someone working with Cheney in her organisation, I'm thinking there's 11 staff. They're going to have access and time with a founder of a business and see how this business runs and get so much exposure to that you wouldn't get in a big business. So, and I'm sure you tell that story and present it very well. Okay, yeah. Let us know if you've got any other questions, guys. We've actually answered all yours, I believe. So keep pinging them through. I know benefits are a key thing here as well when we talk about flexibility, because I suppose depending on your benefits, that might give people more flexibility. And it goes to show, if you can't add a salary, then it's another thing. If you've got a good package of benefits, it goes to your values and shows what you're like as an organisation. So what would your advice be there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a big distrust from candidates now, especially around that salary. I mean, just to give you some of the comments that we've had back. So like I said, 2,500 votes, but as part of that, we were also asking them to give us their feedback and what specifically puts them off applying if there's no salary there. And the comments coming back was that it creates transparency by having a salary there. It shows that you're transparent as an employer. Again, coming back to that culture, values, behaviour piece. People just wouldn't apply and would just move on. So you've just lost a candidate, and that's why it's in the search page. They'll keep scrolling on by because they'll see that there's no salary there. It shows their behaviours. So it shows, again, I guess coming back to that trust piece. People want to be working for companies that they can relate to, that they trust, that they feel empowered by. And if salary's hidden for whatever reason, you know, I think people do distrust that, because, you know, how do you know that the person sat next to you is not on £10,000 more? Is there a gender pay gap issue within that company? I think it opens kind of a can of worms. People like to see salary to decide the experience level of the role. I think that's a big one, especially when you look at the psychology behind why men and women apply for jobs and how comfortable they feel applying. You know, women need to be like 90% of the way there before they're going to hit that apply button, whereas men are kind of 50%, yeah, I'll figure out the rest on the job. So there's that to obviously sense a check. And then people need salaries to check if it's financially viable. If somebody's looking for a flexible working role, but actually, you know, you've got companies like Google sort of saying that they're going to reduce salaries if people are going to stay working remotely and only incentivize people coming into the office to cover their travel arrangements. For me, that's sending the wrong message. You're devaluing people straight away. If you're wanting to encourage people back to the office, maybe give them additional support to get back in and to add it to the salary, not take something away, because you're straight away demotivating people from wanting to work flexibly from home. So there's a lot of things that get thrown up there that, you know, I mean, for me, I'm traditional print press trained sort of back in sort of the sort of late 90s, early 90s, and it was very much, you know, there was 6 things that you had to have in every good job advert, and salary was right up there. And I just feel like the last sort of 10 years that's kind of gone away, but actually candidates really need it right now to come back, to make sure that they can have the values and the culture of a business that they want, and they can have the salary and you know, they feel valued with having that salary there as well.
Yeah, okay. Right, so a few more questions coming through. I'm going to start with Maria's question because I managed to miss it, so apologies, Maria. So her company has been through 3 acquisitions in 3 years. I don't know if you want to maybe advise any more on this, Maria, as we talk about it, but obviously she said it's obviously a bit of a struggle to keep staff motivated. I don't know what advice you might suggest there.
I think, you know, that's going to go back to, imagine after 3 acquisitions, you've got to really sort of dig deep and find out who you are as a company and you know, what is it you're trying to say? How have these mergers or these acquisitions changed you and your culture? Sometimes when, you know, morale is lost, there's issues within management and within training, and with, you know, people being open and keeping that conversation funnel from top to bottom open is always really important. Everybody should have the opportunity to have their say. I think I'm quite happy to talk to you afterwards, Marie, if you want to have a chat about organisational change and different ways of doing things. We practice Mutable as an organisational model, and that works really, really well for us. Everybody in my team feels heard, and it's something that can be for a small company or for a massive company as well. And it's about staying in that constant state of transformation, which sounds like you are as a byproduct of being acquired 3 times. But yeah, I would really go back to the core of who you are, and start talking to your staff and understanding who they are, what drives them, what motivates them, because once you do that, you can empower them, and they will feel much more uplifted by ideally an employer who is actually listening and trying to figure out who we are post reacquisitions.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. If reacquisitions also means there's been some there's been some redundancies, and there's, you know, maybe a few broken promises, like this is where we're going now, and then 6 months later someone's bought you and you're not going in that. So I guess it's communication, over communication, rebuilding trust. You know, you're probably not starting, it doesn't sound like you're starting from a good position, Maria, but you know, it's like you can always rebuild. You know, assuming you know the people at the top of are keen to engage and are keen to sort of, you know, rebuild.
And acquisition can be positive. Acquisition can always be positive, because it's an influx of new thought, of new leadership, of new ways of doing things. It doesn't always have to be detrimental, but it's about how you loop everyone in, engage everybody to be part of the process rather than a byproduct of.
Yeah, one last thing on this might be key. Something I know that some organisations really struggle with, but more and more organisations are getting it. It is maybe the vulnerability to sort of look back and say, okay, look, these are the things we got wrong. You know, these are the things that we shouldn't have communicated, or, you know, we did get this wrong, or, you know, so having the ability to sort of say, look, we haven't got everything right in these last 3 years with 3 acquisitions or whatever else, but we accept that and we understand it, and we're going to learn from those mistakes. I think so many organizations never want to admit any wrongdoing and just want to sort of move on to the next sort of messaging strategy. But I think, well, people still have that residual issue. You've probably got to deal with it. Yeah. Okay. So Annette asked, what was the change management model you mentioned? Is this Mutable? I made a scribble of it on my pad. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Oh yes, it's about Mutable for me. It's very Darwinian in where it arrived from and where it's been developed. So we work with a team of people who can deliver a mutable strategy into a business, but it's about staying in that constant state of reinvention. It's about being agile. It's about, I guess, giving bigger businesses the opportunity to react more like an SME or a micro business can, because you don't have that rigidity of an organizational structure that was there before. If you Google Mutable, you'll probably drop onto Bloor Research's website, which can tell you all about Mutable and the organisation structures there. Like I said, happy to have a chat with anybody after this and put you in touch with the right people and talk about how you guys can become part of that sort of staying in that constant state of reinvention that is so vital to the Mutable framework.
Okay, so that's Bloor. I've put it in the link, BLOOR, Bloor Research Mutable. You put that into Google. We'll make sure we share that after the session as well, a few things to share. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Yeah. So yeah, Maria says obviously she's losing a member of staff every month with this is the free acquisition. So yeah, it'd be interesting, obviously, Maria, just to I presume you understand why you're losing those staff. You're doing good exit interviews to maybe address some of those issues. But it's difficult, isn't it? If there's been mistakes made and there's a loss of trust and things, then you know, there's probably a queue of people who are heading out the door that haven't yet found a position, but when they do, they will move. And yeah, so there might not be too much you can do about that in some cases, because I always think it's like a relationship. When it's broken, it's broken sometimes. There's nothing you can do apart from dust yourself off and you know, work out what went wrong and move forward each day.
knowing you're not alone as well, Marie, because I think we've been doing, because part of what we do, we offer sort of talk therapy power hour sessions to businesses where they literally just get us for an hour and we'll come in and we'll talk to your teams and we'll allow them to talk, but we'll give them the opportunity to talk, to air in like a safe space and go back to their employers, to the businesses with thoughts and ideas about how they can shape and I guess revisit the whole culture, value, behaviours piece, because this is the crux of it. That that's why you're losing staff. They're not in sync anymore. So again, if you want to talk about that, and it's like I said, it's not just you. You're not alone. We've been talking to some big businesses, to government organisations and things like that are having the same issues through. I wouldn't say mismanagement, but certainly just there's a disconnect that's kind of formed over the last couple of years, and that might be down to gender pay gap. It might be down to different management styles, or there's a new team leader that doesn't suit the rest of the team, or it could be down to a lack of flexibility or trying to be too restrictive as you come back. There's loads of different reasons why that could be there, but it's about opening up those channels of communications and setting best practice when it comes to that. So it's kind of a no blame game, but actually giving people the opportunity to talk about who they are and what they want and what drives them really is so important.
Yeah, so Annette, that would be very good advice for Annette, who's asked around, we're losing good people for more interesting jobs. How do we avoid existing staff sort of getting concerned? So it depends on your organisation, Annette. So our organisation, I don't know how you manage this, Cheney, when someone moves on, but we're very, we sit down with people at the start when they're joining and say, plenty of people work here. We promise you, your next 3-4 years here will be proper career development. You will learn at a fast pace. You'll get exposed to lots of responsibility, and we pitch that. And then, but we also say, like, we're challenged to keep moving you on and give you new opportunities. But also, there's plenty of people who, are with us 3-4 years and move on. And we talk about people leaving, very early on, and we're very open about that. Because it's the reality.
Yeah, and I think, my business partner, Richard, he always talks about managing the exit from the first day, from that first interview. And it's about, the people who are leaving, you still want them to talk about you positively. I mean, we're such a small company. Every person that leaves is like a kick in the teeth to me. It's just sort of like, oh, what have I done wrong? It's so personal. But that's a good thing, because you don't really want to lose that. And I think sometimes when organisations get too big, they lose that. It's kind of, oh, well, they're leaving, let's stick out another advert and get somebody else in. I think, managing that exit, understanding why they're leaving, but also, as Adrian said, understanding what drives people when they first start. We should be talking about this at interview, on their first day. Okay, where do you see yourself in 2 years' time? How can we help you to get there? It's all about that career path navigation. We talk about it so much in a lot of the stuff that we do, the societal change maker accreditation. It's about showing somebody that when, even if they're starting in, a care home or something like that on day one, this is where you can be with the development that we've given you. In 10 years' time, you could be a care home manager earning 70 grand a year, because everybody's starting off points when they're starting an early career is around that minimum wage mark anyway. It's showing them what their potential is, showing them the value that they offer to your business, and really speaking to them in a grown-up way, coming back to that yet again, but really just understanding who they are, what drives them, what motivates them, and putting things in place to get them there. And yes, that can be really difficult as a small team. So again, coming back to culture, values, behaviours, understanding it might take a little bit longer to get there, but actually we'll all get there together, and they understand the mission and all of that kind of stuff. So there's loads of stuff that businesses can do to empower the staff to reduce that attrition rate. Again, happy to talk with you after the call if you want to.
Yeah, no, okay. So Annette's, I'm just trying to read these questions coming through, and there's a couple I still from a few minutes ago that I still need to go back to. So I'll cover off. So Annette's question, just follow. Annette's made some further comments. So the good thing, they offer roadmap conversations to all their staff. They're a design consultancy, so obviously it's quite, high knowledge industry they're working in. So roadmap conversations have been fab. The issue is we don't have the opening to progress as quickly as people want. Now, I can relate to that. And then I sort of throw my hands up a bit and go, that's the reality. Unless you can change the business so it's able to offer that, you need to maybe change the recruitment process. It's not very nice. It's not easy to say. Just to say you've got to sort of accept it and build your recruitment processes around it to say, well, we do lose staff at this level because there's only a certain amount of opportunities. therefore recruit like this to anticipate that, and we're robust enough to do that. Yeah, I don't know if it's a tough one.
I think sometimes when it's like that, it's around salary, and that might be the core issue. You know, can you offer a pay rise, or can you offer some kind of more responsibility and generate a new role for that person? Show them that they are valued by your business. There's other strings that you can pull. Right, you know, they may not get the job directly ahead. So what does this career path need to be then? You know, is salary the reason that you want to be there, or do you just want to take the step up? Sometimes it's just a precursor to that person just needs change, and you're never going to keep them anywhere. There's always going to be attrition. I think it tends to be about 2 years seems to be the maximum anyone seems to stay in a business now, because they are taught at uni as they come out and they move into the career world that if you want to progress, you move on. We're not in a culture in this country of asking for a pay rise or asking for that promotion. We'd rather move on to get it from somewhere else. So it's, again, having that open culture within your business to actually allow people and encourage people to talk about what they want, rather than looking and seeking for it elsewhere.
And I guess my last point for that we move on would be, I would just look and think, what do you, if you're losing, let's say 10, 12 people, I don't know how big your organization is across a year, then it'd be like, well, what are you doing for like the 1 or 2 people from that 10 or 12 who are the real stars? You know, and what could you do for them? Whether it's salary, whether it's a leadership plan or some other program or special training, what are you doing, or what could you do to sort of retain those people to make sure you're not losing the real difference makers, perhaps? Sam has asked, we're in the construction industry. Even prior to COVID, the market was competitive. They've got a higher number of resignations recently. It's causing stress and strain. And what I like about this is because, Sam then says, we're an SME. We're trying to get hiring managers to sort of change up what they're doing. They're a little bit closed-minded, thinking of always getting a 100% person. It's a vicious circle. Obviously they can't. They're struggling to recruit, struggling to find the perfect candidates, and hiring managers are used to that, so they're not changing. Any advice?
It sounds like you need to either re-educate or have a proper sit down with your hiring managers to understand what is the actual need. We always encourage output-based working, and when this becomes the case, actually what is the desired outcome, because then that completely opens up flexibility. It opens up your job description to people you would never even considered, never even attracted before. And I think this is
explain, because I know you've got a big campaign you've done on this area. Do you want to briefly explain what output-based job adverts are and job specifications?
So yes, I mean, so for us, we did the output challenge, and a construction company got involved in that, and it was very much about just stripping back job descriptions, just stripping back the role to actually what is required. What do you need as in a business for the person that comes into that role? What do they need to deliver, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it might be, and just strip everything out, strip out your D&I, strip out your flexible workers, strip out everything else, and just allow candidates to look at, can I do this? Can I provide this service? Can I provide this function? You're almost turning the candidate into a commodity and in terms of a service that they can provide, and you just build up from there. And getting hiring managers to look at jobs in that way as an output allows you to do the PAYE model. It might allow you to do the consultancy model. It might allow you to do, a completely new that we're trying to invent it. We're going to get there. But output is definitely sort of the model that I think future work is kind of moving toward as a pay structure. But yeah, I think stripping back your roles and actually just looking at what the function is, what's the deliverable, and allowing people to showcase who they are and what they can deliver to you. Because for me, it's not about the journey, and I think a lot of job descriptions these days are about the journey. We want you to have X, Y, Z. We want you to have done this, that, and the other. But does that all matter if the person can deliver you using other products or other software or other tools to get to where you need to be? The other side of this, obviously, if it's actually the building and things like that, is working with the Department of Education or other sort of government providers to build programs to get more people into that industry and get funding for stuff like that. We're working with Infor at the minute, delivering a big skills city package. I mean, this is in tech, but there's no reason why it can't be offered to other industries where there's a skills shortage. And that's literally taking people who've never even looked at a piece of technology before and training them into tech, whether it's AWS or Reiki, but areas where there is a skills shortage. So there's loads of opportunities for businesses to access funding through government to help drive and create and deliver these programs too, and help the kids that are leaving at 16, 17, 18, 19 into a career they've never thought of before by removing all of the, I don't want to swear on an early morning TV, but the nonsense from a job description, and actually just telling them what's needed. It's really, really simple.
Yeah, and I think so, Sam. I would, check out your competition. You'll see they're probably not doing an awesome job in regards to job adverts and stuff, like we said. So if you can get this right, and maybe I'm always an optimistic person saying, "Oh, you've got this huge problem. Well, let's turn it into an opportunity." But if this moment in time forces your hiring managers to change and adapt, maybe forces directors to sort of give you more freedom, capacity to try new things, or whatever that could be, then yeah, you could end up building, this recruiting as a real competitive advantage for your organization. Because obviously, I guess the whole thing is the whole of your industry is probably struggling to recruit staff at the moment.
I mean, it brings it back to organisational change again, about being mutable, about being in that constant state of reinvention. Actually, it forces you to adapt, to become more dynamic, to really think about absolutely everything that you're doing all of the time. There's always a better way. It's not getting stuck in the same old that we've had, almost indoctrinated into us since, the 19th and 20th century working cultures. This is a period of change, it's a period of flux, and employers really need to adapt to that.
Yeah, it's going to be a very fast period of change, isn't it? We've never had, because of what we've just come through, we've never had this level of change, and then now we're getting the after effects of that all flowing through. So how we're all going to adapt to it, and obviously some organisations will win and some will lose.
That's why it's Darwinian, isn't it? It's the survival of the fittest.
It is a bit. So hopefully you've got a few ideas from this, guys. It's not been a conversation short of ideas. Thank you for all your questions. We're pretty much up to 11:30 now. So I'll let Cheney finish off with. Do you want to just briefly explain if people want to reach out to you, want to connect to you? You're very busy on LinkedIn and other places as well, Cheney.
Yeah, so Cheney at FindYourFlex.co.uk. Like I say, I'm on LinkedIn, or you can come us through the site. So there's FindYourFlex.co.uk, mummyjobs.co.uk, and daddyjobs.co.uk. You've got my email address there. I'm sure Adrian will send it out in the follow-up email as well. Happy to talk to anybody, whether it's about organisational change, culture, value, behaviours, or whether it's my day job, flexible working. We're here to support businesses. We're as a SME ourselves. We're here to help and to support in any way we can.
Awesome, thank you very much. So guys, as we wrap this up, if you're leaving now, and there is a quick survey, it is like rate the webinar 1 to 10. If you want to add a comment, that'd be fantastic. But we do pay attention to that, so do give that a score. And yeah, Cheney, once again, thank you very much for your input. It's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me, Adrian. And hi everybody, and goodbye everybody. See you soon.
Bye guys.